What would you do if you had lost your most important person? Now imagine you lose your mother the same night. Not physically, of course. She's still alive, but looks at you like you're a stranger, like you're unwelcome, like you're responsible for her suffering. You feel terrible. You drink, you cry, and then someone comes along, reaches out a hand, and offers a warm embrace. A chance at love. A chance at deliverance. Getting off my soapbox for a second, I did start watching this show because I saw Lestat and Louis getting freaky on Maine. And I own that. I did write that intro because I thought it sounded flowery and pretty, and I feel like I really need to get in my purple prose bag for this one. Hey guys, it's Cece. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about what I feel like talking about, and today I'm going to be talking about Interview with a Vampire. Okay? I love this show so much. I'm sure you guys remember the clip that went viral on Twitter for a little bit when the first episode of Interview with Vampire came out. I'm here to say I'm thankful for it because without that 8-second video, I don't know who I would be today, because I consider Interview with a Vampire, since the year it came out, probably like 32% of my personality. And that's not a negligible percentage, right? Every time I tell people how many times I've watched the show, I'm looked at with a deep sense of, are you okay? Because why have you watched one show that many times? I did read the first book. I am in the middle of reading the second book. Actually, let me pull it up. This is my copy of The Vampire Lestat. I didn't do this. Okay, my dog did this. This is one of those things that happens to you and you like dissociate, and you have to connect the dots in your head to make it okay. And I'm not gonna pretend. I'm not gonna be trying to be holier than thou and be like, oh, I started reading Anne Rice when I was 12. And no. The only thing I know Anne Rice from is the absolute hell that she would rain down on fan fiction writers. Okay, that's what I know about her. That is like my initial forming knowledge of that woman. And then I was like, oh, she's the vampire lady. Slay. Interview with the Vampire, the TV show, simply put, is about a Black Creole man in New Orleans circa 1910 and his journey into vampirism. And without further ado, let's get into it. The show starts with our jaded investigative journalist Daniel Malloy. The most important thing you need to know about Daniel is that he originally interviewed our main protagonist, the vampire, in the 1970s. As some of you may know, this show is based on a book by the same name. The premise being a reporter sits down with a vampire and interviews him about his life. For all intents and purposes, the contents of this book exists as a box of tapes that Daniel recorded with the vampire that never saw the light of day. Albeit different in some ways, because we do hear parts of it, but we don't ever like hear the thing in its totality, obviously. One day, Daniel receives a nondescript package in the mail from one Louis Dupont du Lac, aka the vampire. In the package lie the aforementioned tapes of the interview and a letter from Louis asking Daniel if he would like to give another interview a shot. He wants Daniel to finish the story he cut short all those years ago, for real this time. So we immediately cut to Daniel in Dubai in Louis' big ass penthouse, because this man has no sense of self-preservation. This man ain't got nothing to live for. Especially since it's revealed that the interview they did in the 1970s, yeah, Louis tried to eat him. And not in the fun way. I mean, I'm gonna rip your throat out and leave you for dead and no one's gonna find you because you're a strung out drug addict kind of way. So that's how their previous meeting left off. Not so great terms. So obviously he has to go back into the lion's den, like half a century later. Why? Because he's a glutton for punishment like everybody else in the show. Old Manuel arrives at Louis' penthouse and you can kind of sense the history between them. Louis Dupont du Lac is introduced. He speaks to Daniel in almost a patronizing way, as though Daniel's old man mannerisms are cute to him. Like, he's like, oh, you cute little human. It's very, very condescending. We find out from Louis that Daniel has Parkinson's and that he's dying. And Daniel finally addresses the elephant in the room and plays the final tape from their last interview. And we hear Louis assailing Daniel because Daniel was being disrespectful. But apparently they're both on the same page. Daniel admits that he basically flubbed the interview. It was like an interview being told to an idiot. Louis claims that times have changed and that I've changed. I love Louis so much. Like, he sometimes, if you look at him from the correct lens, he's giving like Tumblr girl circa 2014. He posts like black and white mood boards from with like quotes from like YA fantasies from like the late 2000s. his his reposts are like full of like the exact same post of like black and white like mood boards, like, you know, the girls with like the little strappy tank tops and like the hat, and you can't see their eyes, and the hat is like tilted like this, and the caption says, "I can't be who you want me to be." Anyway, our story officially begins. Louis begins telling his tale. We open in 1910 in a small town called Storyville, and Louis is a pimp. Storyville is a small red light district in New Orleans, and he owns quite a few sporting houses, is what he likes to call them. And you see that Louis's family has always had money, like plantation money. And once his dad died, he basically found out that his dad left them in a bunch of debt, which required him to find more creative ways of sourcing income. So we entered one of these tourist establishments, and I'll actually be reciting one of our first quotes from the show. I'll only be including the most crucial one, so don't worry. "I don't care who you is, you put a dick in an asshole without asking, that's against Jesus. Fuck you." You see, one of his employees, Bricks, was providing services to a particular white man who is an Alderman Fenwick. And for those of you who don't know what an alderman is, it's basically like a city councilman. And she hits him over the head because he was putting something in somewhere that he shouldn't have. So Louis is helping him out like all good pimps do, and Fenwick calls him the N-word immediately out the gate. Also, I would like you to know that this old racist white man is the same voice actor as Jake the dog. Thank you. You have that information, and these characters are fully intertwined in your head now. You're welcome. So the shit dick shenanigans are interrupted by a citizen priest, okay, who is outside telling all these working women that they're defiling the Lord, that they're going to hell unless they, you know, clean up their act, get on their knees and repent to Jesus instead of getting on their knees and sucking dick. And Louis comes out to deal with him personally, because this man is actually his brother, Paul. Louis tells him to go home. They get into a fight, and Louis actually ends up pulling a knife on him and threatens to kill him. Now, while this is unhinged, violent, and completely unnecessary, this single act catches the attention of the pastiest man with the jolliest of jawlines. This man is clearly a vampire. Now, while I personally would love to be turned into a vampire, I consider it one of my defining traits. This does not bode well for Louis. The following day, we meet the rest of Louis's family, his mother, Mama Dulac, and his sister, Grace. They all know he runs a brothel, but as far as Mama Dulac is concerned, she don't know none about none. She likes having long money, and as long as the money stays long, she don't got a care in the world. And his sister is actually getting married to a Baptist man. And Paul, who is also sitting at the table because they're all having breakfast together, he isn't having it. He basically calls her a witch. And this is, mind you, this is after he tears into Louis about his brothel business. One thing I love about Paul is that he has no chill. Like, everybody's catching it. Like, as soon as Paul enters the room, there's strays for everybody. Like, no one is safe. Louis walks Paul to church, and he tells us while he and his brother may have some differences, that he loves him more than anyone on earth. And it's a beautiful scene of them walking down the street together and just having like a good time and being brothers. And I think Louis basically says that Paul is probably the person who knows him as well as anyone could, and that he means the world to him. Louis goes on to talk about how his business and his religion were at odds. Being a God-fearing pimp is quite the contradiction, but that's not all. He alludes to how being a gay man and being back his urges has also been a challenge to him. Honorable shout out to one of my favorite quotes from this episode. "I appeased myself with a lie I told myself about myself, that I was a red-blooded son of the South seeking ass before absolution." Fucking period. Who wrote that? You deserve a Reese's cup. And if I knew you, I would deliver it to you personally. He performs his routine visit to the Fair Play Saloon, which is an upscale white brothel where he is able to entertain certain privileges despite his blackness, to visit a prostitute named Miss Lily to keep up appearances. And lo and behold, sitting across from Miss Lily, speaking fluent and fancy French, is Lestat de Lionco. I love saying their names, like Louis Dupont Dula, Lestat de Lionco. I have so many vocal stems from the show. Anyway, he's looking at Louis like he wants to eat him, literally and sexually. However, this white man has the nerve to question Louis' presence at the saloon. And literally the first thing he says to him is like, how did you get through the front door? Louis is like, excuse me? He's like, well, you're black. So how did you get inside? In that moment, hatred spawned in my heart, obviously and clearly. And you could tell Louis was feeling the same way. But he continues to tell Louis about why he's here, how he's here, the reason he stayed. And the reason that he stayed in the quarter was because he saw Louis pull a knife on his brother and he decided, that's the kind of man I need to hold me down. Telling him all of this while he's feeling up Miss Lily at the same time. Like, truly, there is like a billion things happening in Louis' head right now. However, Louis, gay as fuck, felt entranced, almost transfixed by Lestat's gaze. He wanted to kill him, right? But he also wanted to hit that, which is poetic, I think. Eventually, the madam comes around and it's time to put up or shut up. Like, who is getting Miss Lily tonight? So, they start throwing money down and Lestat, beats out Louis. So Louis is just humiliated. He's mortified. He's disgraced, figuratively dicked down in front of everybody. Okay, it was not a feel-good time. As Lily and Lestat leave, Louis admits that he could only think of Lestat after that encounter, which is crazy because that man really called you out your name. The way Louis' brain functions sometimes concerns me a lot. Lestat gave him his business card that night and he still has it to this day, like present day. Louis hands it to Daniel to show him that he still has it. That reminds me, there's a character that I didn't talk about before. His name is Rashid. He is Louis' kind of butler assistant guy who is kind of just hangs around. He might not come up that much, but he does sometimes. If I'm showing footage from the show and you see, a mousy little brown man that is super, super cute. His name is Rashid. That's Bestie, by the way. But I just figured I'd let y'all know. We cut to Louis playing poker with a table full of rich white men. And Fenwick is there. He's lowballing Louis because he basically wants to open a whorehouse, right? And he wants Louis to do all the work. And for the profits, I'll give you 10%. Okay, I'll give you 15%. Even someone else at the table, his name is Tom Anderson. He's like a rich white businessman, basically. He's like, there's capital, baby, and then there's labor. Obviously, Louis is insulted and just fed up with the whole thing. And it is at this moment, Lestat interjects and he's staring into Louis' eyes and Louis is staring back. And suddenly, Louis is hearing two French baritones, Lestat's actual voice and his voice in his head. This man is speaking to him telepathically.
10%. 15%. Do you not know your value?
He's telling Louis that he's worth so much more than that. 10%? 15%? He proposes that essentially become business partners and Lestat can become the front-facing man. I do want to note that he does not speak up for Louis at the table. He agrees with everybody there and doesn't say any of the stuff that he said in Louis' head out loud. He shouldn't suffer these indignities, but clearly it's enough of an issue that you're not going to speak out against it. Right. Now, it's in these moments where I have to be objective and say that this is probably one of the scariest situations, okay, Louis could find himself in. This pasty man is telling him things in his own mind, and Louis' response to this is like, oh, he just got tricks. Now, mind you, I understand. Okay, this is Louisiana. We're in New Orleans. There is a sense of magicalness about the city. I think there's something to be said there. But for me personally, it's different if you're in New Orleans, Louisiana, and someone from New Orleans, Louisiana, right, does something magical, whimsical, or something that's a little hoodoo-ish or voodoo-ish, which I'm not going to get too much in hoodoo and voodoo in this because it's not even remotely relevant to the tale, and I also don't want to be disrespectful to like that entire history and culture there. But I think there is something there of like a man from like the deep south seeing something magical, which I feel like the South is such kind of like such a magical place. I'm trying to shoot Louis some bail so bad, right? I'm really trying because that's my baby girl. If we're taking it from that angle, I can kind of shoot Louis some bail here, right? But it's not as if he saw someone, right, who's like native to his region do like some little magic where it's like, okay, that's like it's a little magic. Someone, they got tricks, right? This is a man with piercing eyes, the whitest man that you've ever seen from a foreign country coming here and doing tricks, and you're not scared. You're not scared enough because Louis is truly the most uncurious man I've ever met, right? Because in what scenario does that happen to you and you're like, I need to hang out with this guy more. I need to see what his deal is. No, Louis, you're too black for that. Okay. We don't get curious about white people's business like that. We don't do that. Now, watching this for the first time, I had no issue. Okay. This for me, that's my time to shine. But as someone who didn't want to be turned into a vampire, Louis, get a grip. Okay. He calls Lestat's feats of magic tricks and proceeds to befriend him. He shows him around town, attending operas, frequenting clothing shops. They go to the park and read together. Only at night, of course. Growing ever closer, despite how close Lestat holds his cards to his chest. He doesn't really talk about his past. And they kind of just like use it as a way of like him showing him around town and starting their relationship as business partners, right? Malloy too starts to ask questions. He's like, you didn't want to, is this not, Louis says, let the tale seduce you as I was seduced. And like, true. I agree with that. Especially in the telling of the story. But in that moment, Daniel's sitting there like, a lot of things Daniel says in response to Louis' fuck ass behavior have to stand 10 toes down and agree with Daniel. Because what were you doing? Mind you, Louis back then is a grown man. He is 33 years old, right? When this story begins. It wasn't like he was like 16 or nothing like that. Like he was young. He is a full grown man. Just taking things as they come, I suppose. He befriends Lestat, and then one day he's talking to Grace about his French wet, and she tells him to invite Lestat over for dinner. Meanwhile, Paul is on the balcony having a conversation with no one. He is talking to himself. They're both clearly worried about him, and Grace wants to send him to an inpatient facility or whatever the equivalent to that is in the 1910s. And Louis would just rather have him stay at home. He gets her mind off the topic by giving her a wedding gift, first class train tickets across Europe. Mama, I'm going around the world. Staple in my vocabulary. I want this exact scenario to happen to me so bad. I just want someone to give me like tickets on a really nice trip, and then I'm wearing like a really long dress. I need that. I want what Grace has, is what I'm saying. I want that, and I want it bad. Anyway, so we're at dinner with Lestat. Everyone's there, including Grace's fiance, Levi, Paul, ever the instigator. I really have to say this man is out for everyone, and I do love it. I do enjoy the drama that it causes.
Of this bouillabaisse. What?
They're making small talk, and Paul is talking down on Levi, grilling Lestat. Louis tells him to shut up, which I think is crazy to tell your brother to shut up. Guess what? What happens next? Lestat finally gets fed up with the questions, and he goes on a little rant himself that honestly is kind of disturbing, even going so far as to use his psychic powers on Paul. And then Louis has to tell him to cut that shit out because that's insane. Needless to say, the rest of the dinner was extremely awkward, okay? The family was not a fan of him after this point. This did not need to happen. Keep your vampire activities to the streets, my good sir. Louis walks Lestat home, and he asks Louis if he wants to come in for a nightcap. He initially declines, but the camera pans up to the balcony to show none other than Miss Lily waiting for them. Obviously, things are about to get real freaky real fast. So we're in the living room. Boom. Lily is stripping. Boom. She asks about the song playing on the music box, and Lestat says that he composed it for a young violinist he once knew. Interesting. There's a moment that I love so much where like Lestat reaches for Louis and like Louis leans for it so he like misses him. I'll show it on the screen. So they're talking. Lestat is making heavy eye contact. I mean, it's cumbersome. This eye contact is very weighty. Long story short, Lestat puts Lily to sleep. They get to getting down, him and Louis, okay? Lestat bites Louis. They start levitating in ecstasy. They kiss, they hug, they sensualize each other. Pleasure he felt was unmatched. Unsettling because obviously this degree of intimacy specifically with another man is not something that he gets down to very often. Okay, after the night he became highly uncomfortable and decided that he was not going to see Lestat again. After this, we are at Grace and Levi's wedding. It's just one of my favorite scenes. It's just black people around black people with black people being black. Grace jumps the broom. After that, it's the reception. Grace entreats her brothers and asks them to take up their tap dancing skills once again because they used to be known as ABCDEFGs. Altar boys come dancing every day for God. So basically they tap dance, they kind of dance the night away, they eat a bunch of food, they are just dancing and commiserating up until the sun comes up. Next, we see the two brothers. The sun is coming up. They're climbing on the roof to watch the sunrise after all the festivities because that's something they actually do quite regularly. They'll like sit on top of the house and watch the sun come up. Paul asks Louis if he's still in business with Lestat. Louis says no. Paul says, good, that man's the devil. He's here to take souls. He told me so. Paul says, I love you, Louis. Louis says, I love you too, baby brother. Paul says, I think I ate too much checkered cake, and he walks off the roof and ends his own life. It was the most like heart-wrenching thing. And then we come back to the present and Louis just says the saddest thing. He said, I think that's one of the best things that this dark gift gave me was that sunrise that I saw with my brother was the last sunrise that I ever saw. And I live like it's the last time for a long time. Is it for a long time at the wrong time? Is it my time? And if I'm dreaming, then please don't wake me up. Period. Anyway, they begin making funeral arrangements, and Louis's mom, like the devil woman that she is, blames Louis for Paul's death. She is hung up on the fact that Paul took his own life and he can't go to heaven. And I love Grace, but I am not in love in this moment with how she did not stand up for Louis. Like, she kind of just lets her mom rip into him and doesn't say anything to like defend him, which is confusing to me. They're having the funeral procession and Lestat approaches Louis during as in we're proceeding the procession through the streets with the coffin, and Lestat comes up to Louis and he's like, why haven't you called me back? I don't take kindly to being ignored. When you gonna come see me again?
You've been avoiding me. I have been. Miss Lily proved herself a poor substitute, and I don't take kindly to being avoided. Funeral.
They continue to the gravesite. His mom won't even talk to him. The whole time Lestat is in his head talking about some come to me, Vienna, moi, Louis. Like, shut up. Shut up. I am mourning my brother. Please. He is left alone at the cemetery by his family, right? Basically, at this point, Mama Duloc is like, you're not my son anymore. Levi's my new son, and he's going to basically replace you. And it's really terrible to watch. And Grace is like, don't mind her. She just needs to put it somewhere. Why is she putting it on me? Why? I'm literally the one who had to witness this with my own two eyes. This is just like the perfect setup of events to have like the worst night you've ever had. He spends the night drinking his sorrows away. He tries to escape the humming sound of Lestat's voice, but he can't. He goes to Fair Play Saloon to find Miss Lily. The madame tells him that Lily was taken by this disease that's been spreading around town where people die from blood loss. Like they basically have been exsanguinated. And this happened a few weeks ago. Have I forgiven Lestat for killing this black woman? Absolutely not. Anyway, Louis is freaked the fuck out. He goes to the church. He begs to see the priest and proceeds to give an award-winning monologue. Like someone actually give this man a prize. I remember being on the internet at this point and everybody's like, so no nomination. Like, what's the tea? I wish I could insert the whole thing without like getting a copyright strike. Send Jacob Anderson his Emmy. You can send it in the mail. We could do it over Zoom. Like, I will literally take anything at this point. So Louis is confessing to the priest in a speech I simply cannot hope to replicate here.
Lord, and I lie to myself saying I'm giving them roof and food and dollar bills in their pocket, but I look in the mirror, I know what I am. The big man in the big house, stuffing cotton in my ears so I can't hear them cry.
He confesses to being a bad brother, an unfilial son, a pimp, a liar, a glutton, a coward, a whole list of things. And the worst thing of all, he confesses to being a gay man. He can't live anymore. He feels like he doesn't have anybody in this world who cares about him or understands him. Honestly, that died with Paul, and so he just wants it all to end. His confession is interrupted by the priest getting ripped out of the booth, and we see Lestat, absolute fiend, is feeding on the priest. Louis attacks him, stabs him a couple times, but it has no effect. Lestat tells him that this country has taken everything from him. He's forced to wear 20 different hats, forced to be somebody that he's not, with his business partners, with his family, with himself, right? He's playing all these parts and none of them are who he really is. They approach the altar and he tells Louis everything he needs to hear. It's that line of what rage you must feel as you choke on your sorrow. He sees the sadness in Louis and he says that he can take it away. He can swap it out for a dark gift, that he's beautiful, that he loves him, that he can give him this gift to take away all his suffering. The show ends with President Louis saying that it's difficult to articulate how powerless he felt in the face of Lestat's words. Very soon forgot the savagery around him. He says, "For the first time in my life, I was seen. Be my companion, Louis." Also another vocal stem. He doesn't say it like that at all, but that's how it's transformed in my mind. He says, "Be my companion." I don't even know how he says. I've seen this 2,000 times. I don't remember how he says it originally, but when I say, "Be my companion, Louis." You got it with the oomph. It's amazing. Louis nods and kisses Lestat on the altar.
Drain me to the very threshold of death.
Lestat bites him, turns him, and the show ends as they lay there in throes of increasing wonder. Yeah, I ate that. Wasn't that so great? My thoughts on this episode, just listing off a couple things that I really like. Loved how they described like Louis struggling with his sexuality in so far as I think they did a really good job of showing how repressed he was and then how that plays into his final scene of becoming a vampire, because like all those feelings and that internal conflict and turmoil kind of comes to a crescendo when this person is like, okay, I know all these things that you hide about yourself and I'm okay with it, and how that can be like, well, then I guess we can be together forever. Something else I really loved is Paul's character. I really liked how writing a character with a mental illness, I'm not here obviously to make a diagnosis, but it seems like Paul suffers with some degree of psychosis or has like some sort of psychotic disorder. Having psychosis and or having a psychotic disorder is not inherently a bad thing. I think a lot of shows really struggle with this. Being psychotic is actually like a condition that you can have. Like you can have a psychotic disorder. That does not mean that you are a bad person or that you're going to harm people. They wrote Paul in a really lovely way of like introducing him in a way where he's like very confrontational and very like has a very set way of he how he looks at the world, and that's how he's introduced. But he's also, we see him with Louis, and he's very sweet and he's very kind, and we see that he like wants the best for his family. He's a very complex and caring individual. I think they wrote him very, very well, and you can tell why Louis loved him so much. I also really love the way they wrote Lestat's speech. Louis didn't say, oh my God, I was hypnotized by his words. They're like, I was hypnotized by his words, and these are the words that he said. And they actually lived up to that, in my opinion. That kind of way that it was written, it was like, okay, it's really gory and terrible. How do you flip this on its head? One thing I'm not going to do, I'm never going to say that Lestat can even begin, okay, to understand what being a black man in America is, something that he will never understand. And I think at points kind of refuses to understand, in some ways does not want to understand. But it's like this French white man is like kind of articulating all the things that he feels and telling him that, oh, like, I love you, and I can accept you for who you are, and I can give you something powerful that might help you overcome these obstacles that you have in your life. Mind you, Louis has never been in a relationship, so for all intents and purposes, Lestat is the first person that he's in a relationship with, and for that to happen, for someone to love bomb you that intensely in your first relationship, you can say whatever you want and say that you would not be moved. Congratulations. That's not true for everybody. When you enter into your first relationship and the first person, just because they've heard everything that is wrong with your life, decides to mirror that and tell you that, yeah, those things are wrong, and I'm right here next to you, and I'm going to love you forever, and actually, I agree with everything that you just said, and you're the most amazing person on the planet, and I will never leave you. But also, it's like the effectiveness of like Lestat's manipulation. Because every time, I think something I continuously come back to in this first episode that I always find particularly jarring is when Lestat comes up to Louis at the funeral. I'm just like, to what end? You know, like, why would you do that if what your end goal was to get him to want to be turned into a vampire, to want to be with you? Particularly like rewatching this part, it is a part of the manipulation. While it is like violently cruel, okay, it is rude and it is terrible. Louis just lost his brother, and Lestat is coming over and saying these terrible things, but encased in those terrible things is this need for Louis's attention. I'm someone who's always going to need you. I'm someone who always wants your attention, no matter what is going on in your life, right? Now that Paul is gone, Lestat very quickly swoops in there, and he's like, here's another person who needs you. Here's another person who needs your attention. Here's another person who wants to be around you all the time. Even though he did it in such a like vile way, it worked because he got his attention. He's all up in his head talking about, come to me, come to me, come to me. Louis cannot ignore someone who is saying that, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. At least not in this point in his life. Please don't like leave me, I need you. And it's like super weird and super terrible, but it's like actually Pokemon super effective. He really did his big one with that. And then when he came in with the final speech at the end, like Louis was just blown over like a little twig, like a little tree. So those are my thoughts on the first episode of Interview with a Vampire. I would love to hear what you guys think. If you comment below, please no spoilers. Okay, no spoilers about what is coming next for posterity. If anybody ever comes across this video and they have not seen the show for whatever reason, let's just keep the discussion to this episode. Oh, Rilakuma, do you have anything to say? He loved it just as much as I did. I love that. Are you gonna read the book too? You don't have to. It's fine. That is my review and recap of the first episode of Interview with a Vampire. I will be back hopefully either next week or the week after that with review and recap of the second episode, because I want to upload these videos pretty regularly, but I also want to upload like other videos alongside that, so it's not just like Interview with a Vampire for like 16 videos straight. Like, that's insane. That's it for me. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'm gonna go along for some longevity, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.